Sergey, do you want to start like normal?
Oh, yeah. Okay, recording is on. It's June 8th, 2021. It's SIG Node weekly meeting. Hello, everybody. And as usual, we want to start with what you missed section. So we, in terms of PRs, there are not much happening. Many merged PRs are not related to SIG Node. So you can look at statistics. We're growing on PRs slowly. But hopefully we can reverse the trend. I hope we will reverse the trend soon. And also, Elana is scheduling the issues triage session for June-ish, end of June, I believe. So maybe it will also help to like sparkle joy and contributions that we can accept faster.
Yeah, so as a reminder, we've scheduled a bug scrub for June 24th and 25th. I'm hoping I should have more details on that by the end of this week, as well as recruiting people to sort of lead in each region, since we want to ensure that it's open for all time zones. And yeah, as far as PRs have been going, I've been going through sort of the review backlog. There's a lot of stuff that's just kind of, stuck, like stuff that's received review feedback has not moved, stuff that still needs review, stuff that has received review but hasn't had a chance to get an approver. Triage is going along pretty quickly, so I think things are moving. I have not seen a lot of like feature work yet for the release, so I guess as a same reminder as last week, if you have a KEP that's been merged, don't forget to actually get your features implemented, get feedback early, because we don't want those all coming in at the last minute.
Thanks, Elena, initiator and also leading off this effort. And also, I just want to call out June 22nd, we want to review the PR status for the KEP for this release. So just we discussed last week. So, Sergey, do you want to start your first item?
Yeah, my first item is just a discussion of how we can normalize the behavior, like document the behavior that people start taking dependency on. So right now, we don't define any order of startup of pods, of containers in a pod, and that even though we do that sequentially. Furthermore, we're not only doing it sequentially, we also like first container will start, and then this container will execute the restart hook, and only after that second container will start. And author of tools like sidecar containers already taking dependency on that. I found at least a couple examples. And my question is, like, I know there were a couple attempts before to start containers in parallel. I found at least 2 attempts in terms of PRs that trying to change the logic. But at this stage, since people taking dependency of that, yeah, containers, yeah. I see comment from Don in the document. Yeah, since people taking dependency on that, I'm thinking we need to formalize it somehow, like either, I mean, I don't think we can break it at this stage because people already taking dependency on that. So I propose to make it official. So just say that this is our startup order, and this is how just create a conformance test for that. So I wonder what are other opinions here? Like, if you're not documenting it, but we still behave this way, and people to break it. I will stop pause for now.
I think. Yeah, only worry is like we had like that proposal from Tim, and we had discussions around like defining a dependency graph. So if we somehow formalize it, we need to worry about if we are kind of putting ourselves in a corner that we can't get out of to make those changes.
Yeah, but if you we likely will need to change it under feature flag and then somehow deprecate this behavior over time. Otherwise, like we will break some production workload for customers, right? So I was thinking, like, yeah, The reason I'm bringing it to this forum is I want to understand what is our pain limit for this kind of changes. We changed exact prop timeout before, and the exact prop timeout started being respected. And now I'm finding so many users affected by that. It's just like, I mean, people using gRPC checks using exact prop timeout, exact props. So gRPC may run slower than 1 second, and suddenly pods will become unready or like being killed because of liveness prop. So we change this behavior, and then now we need to suffer consequences because people took a dependency on bug in the Kubernetes. So this is undocumented behavior, but people taking dependency on this undocumented behavior. So even if we will introduce this sequence of pod starts, we need to be able to fall back into existing behavior, and thus we need to document this behavior and maybe even make it conformance. What do you think?
This is Lan Tao. I think even if we introduce the order, it only applies during startup, right? Because if when you restart a container, of course you won't have restart order, or else you will never restart a container because until its parent, its dependency dies, right? So it will only be useful during startup. And if it's only useful during startup, I guess it's usually only for initialization, right? You just have an initialization dependency. You need to initialize something first and then the second. And in that case, it's just what init container does, right? We have init container and it's executed in order, and it's only executed once and doesn't restart if it's a SIG. So I feel like the semantic applies better than defining a startup order of the regular containers.
Yeah, init containers are different because they don't start anything. But I agree with you. Like restart is different question. We need to address it somehow differently. But this behavior is already taking dependency on.
I want to share the decision we made. Maybe we actually document that decision somewhere. Maybe just people delete, because the reason I found a lot of all the content being without consultant, without our maybe I'm not included. It's just removed accidentally. So the initial before we introduce init container, we decided there's no start order, there's no dependency how to the order and the start any container within of the pod. There's no and which container is a start first and the second follow each other. Besides the pod info container, that's the one hold of the namespace or a lot of things, and so all the other container actually is arbitrary order. So it could be implementation detail, and we change that order, or concurrent start, and all those kind of things. Initially, actually, we even try concurrent start. And then later we found that actually it's not have much of the performance gain. So then we start one by one. We doing those kind of things, but it's not, that's just all treated as implement detail. Then later we introduce the init container. This is why init container also between each other, and they have like the order. We just say, oh, absolute follow that order until all the init container start successfully. Then we can start the rest of the application container. That's also no order. I know we introduce a lot of hook, and people play the trick with the hooks, and then try to force inject some order. But there's the other things also. We try to define the order, but that's the separate project, like the Sataka container, and also there's the order between how we start and like also restart. The reason we didn't really agree upon is just complicated. There's so many different use cases, and also a lot of use cases even controversial. So, but we do document in the past the application container, the order we didn't ensure.
Yeah, I would be worried, given that it's an implementation detail, I would be worried about like artificially constraining ourselves if we wanted to, for example, do a big kubelet refactor, adding that as a conformance detail. Like it just doesn't, well, we might end up painting ourselves into a corner. I would say the more flexible we can be on that, the better. I think it's fine to say this is currently how it works, could change, like this is not a guarantee. I think that would be fine, but just being clear about expectations.
So, I mean, we already painted ourselves into corner. If from very beginning we would randomize the order, then it's clearly implementation detail. But since we don't randomize the order, and in fact we wait for pre-start hook, we basically made people depend on that. And now we have production workload for people not even realizing that the production workload of their applications. And this application may not even belong to the customer. It may have been developed by some third-party vendor. And like with upgrade of Kubernetes, if you change this behavior, then those applications will be broken, and we need to start thinking about it. So are you suggesting to make it not a conformance test, but just a test, or don't test it at all?
Well, I think that, I mean, as far as, just because people are relying on the behavior doesn't mean it's like a documented feature, right? And that's the sort of thing that I would expect would not break in a patch release, but could easily break in a major release. So I would be very hesitant to add conformance testing, or, I mean, effectively, I think that that's already reflected in our unit tests, that we have a startup order like that. So I'm not sure what we would be adding.
Yeah, so I guess general question is, what is our philosophy of breaking things and making them stable? So like if can major release change it without without notice? I mean, with only notice as the release node. That is a big question. So right now there is another PR that introduces hooks being adjusted to, hooks didn't support HTTPS before, and now there is a PR to fix it. And the question is a legitimate question: is so what if customer by mistake used HTTPS there, and now we're breaking them because they didn't expect that this HTTPS work. They just put it by mistake, maybe copy paste it somewhere. And now we're breaking them.
If we try to have compatibility for every possible mistake that a customer could make, we're never going to be able to make forward progress. That seems very clearly like a thing that is reasonable to break in a major release. And when I refer to major, I mean 1.8 to 1.9 or 1.21 to 1.22, because we use them for kind of weird in Kubernetes. If we can't do that in a major, when can we do that?
Well, I think
I would say we shouldn't do it. We certainly shouldn't do it in a patch release. But
to make a point of order, right? I mean, it's also very valid to expect order of operations to have an order, right? If they currently do, and not to change. I would argue that if you were going to change it, you'd probably need it kept. It's also very valid to argue that if you were to say this is conformance, right? Then it sort of feels like you can't do that kept that you might need to do. Okay, so I think I would lean to yes, this is not conformance, but yes, we should have a test to make sure we don't break it unknowingly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, that is the status quo. We do have unit tests for this.
So it would be nice to be able to tag that behavior in those tests as please don't change this behavior without a kept. For example, we had a recent change where heartbeats were thrown in some into one of the to the streams, and that kept the streams up. So another feature that we had, which was to provide timeouts if nobody's using the streams, got broken. And because we didn't have a conformance test or any test, we lost that order of operations for that ability. Okay, so I think you want to. I think
it's more concerning than conformance test. I've looked at, because I've recently been spending a lot of time on unit test coverage in the kubelet. We don't have full coverage. I think the entire kubelet is at 56%. So let us not worry about conformance tests, which are really not supposed to be focused on the implementation details. They're supposed to be focused on end user expectations of behavior. like, let's get the unit test done before we start worrying.
I agree with the argument that we need a KEP to specify our order of operations and ensure them, and then it would be in conformance. Is that all right?
Okay. Yeah, I think we covered that. And thank you everybody for discussion. I will see what we can do in terms of better testing and making sure we're not breaking it in future releases unintentionally.
And Sergey, and thanks you brought this up because we have so many new people. So if you think about documentation missing something, because I do found a lot of doc in the past, and people just thought it's not up to date, then just delete. But those actually a lot of is policy we decided, and the delete those kind of things actually need to conform with us, and didn't came to the signal. So if you found the documentation is unclear, we can please make that more clear. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Let's move to another one. The Rancho thing. Are you sorry? I pronounce must be wrong. But do you want to talk about the LLC cache, Anchor cache, CPU management? Do you want to talk about this? Okay, looks like no one is here. Talk about this one. I quickly before the meeting, I quickly read through the CAP and ask some question, high-level question, and maybe we can carry on from the CAP. I also, is there anyone currently working on the CPU management want to comment on this one?
So I think Francisco from Red Hat commented on it, and he works actively on it.
Yeah, I was about to say, I have a couple of comments. First, yes, I did I left quite some review comments, and I've been in touch with the author. Also, I've been reviewing initially the CAP and also his initial PR. And I've been in touch with the review author, which mentioned is the timing for this meeting is a bit uncomfortable. So the question is if we can have an extension meeting, one in a month meeting, more friendly to APEC, to people in the APEC area, China, Japan, Australia, things like this. And the other comment is, I want to make is, yeah, I've been following this work, and I'm waiting for basically more answers in the comments I made. In general, I think it's a good direction, but it's a bit too early yet we need to fill some detail in my opinion. But the direction is good, and it's a nice addition, I believe.
Thanks, Francisco, and the review. I also ask some question. Maybe we can discuss. So is the enhancement for existing CPU management, or it is a separate from that CAP? I didn't see that proposed additional policy, or it is enhancement to existing policy. So that's why it's more like, okay, here is the new, and we have this Anchor cache we need to support, and how we are going to support. So it's kind of like the additional. It's not enhancement. It's more like a actual feature, additional feature proposed.
From the current implementation, what I can tell is that, just very quickly, from the current implementation, the feature is enabled by default, and it is an extension of the static policy, which I commented about that. So, but yeah, the current state is this one.
Okay, and another thing it looks like they don't want to make this is cluster a while scheduling policy is just only optimization to the Kubernetes running state, right?
This is the current state. Yes, this is the current state, and the current state is best effort. The current state of the PR is that the code tries to allocate as best as possible with respect to last level cache, and if it doesn't make happen, everything runs as old. So best effort.
Sure. Okay, so you also answered my third question. in the CAP. So I already asked those from the high level, and we used to be run also Pacific friendly SIG Node meeting. I think it's bi-weekly. Correct me, Nantao. Keep me honestly there. And at the end, initially have a lot of people attend, but quickly only Nantao and I was those meetings. So that's why we canceled. If they can come after time, it is Tuesday, right, Nantao? It's Tuesday. We still actually have some
Tuesday night, 11 p.m., something like that.
Yes.
So
if
we just added an APAC friendlier time for the node triage session, and that's going to be 8 a.m. Pacific on Thursday. And you may say, well, 8 a.m., that doesn't sound very APAC friendly. But I think a lot of people in APAC are used to working rather late. But right now, the 10 a.m. Pacific time is just simply too late. I think it's like 2 in the morning or something like that. So maybe let's see how the APAC time works for the triage session, and then maybe we can consider adding APAC time for SIG Node.
Yeah, they have to
Trying to
propose
find that
something.
time was really difficult.
Yeah. Because we used to be like 11 p.m., 10 p.m., Nantao and I host. We're quickly only like the two of us, and we don't need to be so late, and we can talk all the time. So that's why we, at the end, we decided we've been running that for more than half a year, right, Nantao, or maybe even longer. So then we quit. So we basically say, oh, need them to initiate those meetings and propose an agenda. Otherwise, we won't attend such meeting. So we are open for any suggestion on the APAC friendly, but we have to make sure the attendee participants is enough for us to make such justification, right? So just want to share here. Thanks, Francisco. And I also just noticed that Swati also reviewed. Okay, thanks. We should treat this as part of our CPU management request effort, and that's the real use cases that we should support. Yeah. Ek, do you want to talk about the test infrastructure node image issue?
Okay, yeah, sure. This is mostly in context of adding new CI image for memory swap. During the initial research, I pretty much reviewed like all the current image-specific tests, and it seems there are like a multiple different approach that folks are using to like to do the end-to-end testing. I guess start from high level. I wonder if there's any existing policy regarding, say, onboarding a new image, and say after the image is onboarded, how's the life cycle for these, say, feature-specific images are handled? Who's in charge of, like, say, doing upgrade for each of the critical components? For example, the kernel versions and container D version. And finally, there was also on specifically what kind of test coverage are we expecting for, say, more image-oriented feature. I found like quite a few examples, say, for huge pages and CPU manager and memory manager, etc. It's mostly, say, we're focusing on cover the feature-specific tests, where there are also some features that are more running like a huge smoke tests. For example, like C group v2 was pretty much run like all the serial tests and ignoring the flaky and whatnot. So yeah, just trying to get like more context and understanding and alignments for this.
Manu, last time we talked about C group version 2, we also talked about some new image. And
oh yes,
yeah.
So I think Harshal got like Fedora, ended up using Fedora CoreOS for that because it was available on Google Cloud. So yeah, that worked for us. We did not have to like manually bring in a Fedora image. So that's already maintained by Fedora CoreOS, and they publish images to Google Cloud, and we ended up using that.
Okay, so we used to have like the Nantal was here, and also please keep me honestly here. We used to have like since Nantal actually in charge this part, initiate this part. So we do have like SIG Node, the E2E test image project, and we used to be open to many was okay, and so we used to be open to a lot of basically all the OS distro, but you need to have to identify the owner for each OS distro. At the end, a lot of owner didn't provide support. So I think I'm using CoreOS in an example. They didn't keep update CoreOS and didn't make sure CoreOS image pass our minimum conformance test at the node level, not the class level E2E, just only node level. So at the end, we have to remove. This is we discussed this last time when we talked about the for the SIG version 2. So I hope we can finalize. So it looks like we didn't revise our node image policy. I remember we have some node image. What kind of image can get into that test project, and people have to propose and have them maintain and update. So that's we have those policy defined, but I couldn't find. This is why I said like some of the doc is just accidentally delete. So Nantal, do you want to chime in on what we could redefine a lot of those policy, and so make sure there's the owner, make sure there's the how frankly we want to upgrade, and then we can push the image, give the grant of the permission, push the image to that project.
Yeah, I think even, I mean, if I remember correctly, we don't have a policy covering everything you mentioned. So I think at that time, because the Node E2E test was pre-submit, and as you mentioned, if and we had CoreOS image there, and whenever CoreOS image has the issue, it will block everyone's PR. That's why everyone will notice that, and eventually we decide to remove it. So and the only thing I can remember that's related to this, it was the test defined by Yuju, the Node E2E conformance and the Node E2E conformance and Node E2E feature test. I think that's the latest thing we had before we switched. I mean, before I stopped working on SIG Node for a while. I don't remember, but there are other things defined after that. So
no, the E2E test scenario I just add comment there, which is Yuji and I defined. I think it's still last year we discussed and revised. That's still up to date. But that one didn't include of the image. I remember we did define the image policy when we decided to remove CoreOS, because we need to have the policy, and then community decided to remove the policy, remove the CoreOS, and also have defined the requirement how they can re-add back. But anyway, fine. So we could redefine this one. So Manoj, share something required. What's required? Because last time for the SIG version 2, we tried to define this, right? So we define this one, and we add some images. So how difficult it is? Or we just figure out?
No, we just ended up using the images which were already there. But if you want, I can get details from Harshal, and he can share it with SIG Node on what exactly he did to use the Fedora CoreOS image. Yeah.
Sure. So did that answer your question, or you're asking for more, like the how to unblock you? Yeah, I know those policies so complicated. For the
right. I think for the image, I'll try to try with current existing images, and there might require some kernel level changes that I foresee, because this would be a requirement for the swap account for the swap accounting. Yeah, I guess I'll. But right now, I think I got enough to move forward. So I guess for more in the future type of say image lifecycle maintenance, what I hear is that we don't have a concrete policy for that. We don't have like a specific owner for say Ubuntu image, cost image, rel images right now. So it's more of a best effort support so far.
So far we already have Ubuntu, COS, and also Fedora CoreOS, right? In our test. So the feature like swap, can we make sure that is, I share the testing policy. This is the new feature, right? So it could be tagged as the alpha or feature test. So make sure that it is past existing image. So then there's any other concern, can we add more image? So can we identify what kind of the image and also owner who is responsible for that image? Is that okay? For so far?
Sure, sounds good. Yep. And in terms of the test coverage itself, I guess right now it's more of a left at the discretion of each, say, feature owner. Is that correct understanding?
So far, this at least this is the alpha feature, right? So maybe eventually we can graduate this and add this conform, but at least for now can only be the alpha or just a feature tag. So which is alpha the special lead if you read our policy, and or it is a feature. So we have to tag like that way. And if you need some other image, please make sure that image have the owner, can make sure the update, maintenance, and the triage. It is.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And this might have
Thanks
come
for
up.
Clarification.
So this might have been a little bit my fault. One of the things the KEP specifically said was ensuring that we're testing on at least 2 different families of image. So initially a PR came up with Ubuntu, and I said, I think that we need something like rel-ish flavored as well, like Fedora, CoreOS, or whatever images that we happen to have in the test pipeline. We just need to make sure that we're testing on more than one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I don't know. I'm hoping that we shouldn't have specific. I think it would add a lot of maintenance burden if we were maintaining specific images just for the one feature. So I'd recommend that we don't do that, but we need to ensure that we have coverage.
Yeah. I think the swap maybe really don't need. I totally agree. At least more than one image should be required, but is not OS distro specific things. It's more like kernel, right? So like a SIG version 2 swap may have to enable some different implementation, different features. Right. So we do need the testing on something like Fedora, CoreOS have the SIG version 2, and another one is SIG version 1. Make sure the swap work for both SIG group versions, but maybe not that OS distro specific things for open source here. And there's the certain feature long time back have the OS distro like for AppArmor and SIG Linux. So we have to ask. This is open that node image discussed initially. That's many years ago. Because we want to test the SIG Linux, but we don't have any image and support the SIG Linux. So that have the OS distro dependency. But most features so far actually don't have, right? So more is on the kernel, which kernel and which kernel module we enable. Even that one also is kind of kernel module, right? But it is OS distro have the decision.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think for mostly, yeah, that's true. But I think Ubuntu has done special patches for user namespaces, and Fedora typically follows the upstream kernel sooner. But I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So for this one, maybe Ubuntu plus the Fedora is good enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's great. But still, let's continue define our node image policy. I realize we are still missing this one. We'll come back to bite us again. And I do my duty is go figure out all the policy written somewhere if I save somewhere. Okay, let's move to the next topic. Thanks.
The next topic is mine, but an urgent topic just came in after that. So Josh Burkus, maybe do you want to go first?
Okay. Yeah. This is a quick question, but it's been hard to get a determinative answer on this, which is we've had a major regression in the last patch releases, a crash involving kubelet streams. And I can't find anybody who can tell me whether this affects all runtimes or just Docker shim or a selection of runtimes. And we need to actually notify users about whether or not they should update if they haven't already.
I am digging into the code to try to get you an answer. But I think it was just like the speedy connection. So let's see. This says CRI, so probably anything that's not Docker shim.
So Cryo uses this for sure, Josh. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure, Lanta, like on the containerd side, did you end up using the streaming server from Kubernetes or something else?
Yeah, I think we. I need to double check because I remember. I mean, initially we started with the streaming server, but
Okay.
Later, I remember they replaced it with some. They replaced some other thing they built themselves.
Okay.
I need to double check. That's what I remember.
Okay, but this is still the client side from the kubelet, so you'll have to check like the whole chain and see if this affects you. Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like definitely affects Docker shim, might affect, probably affects Cryo, might affect containerd, but we don't know yet on the last.
Yeah, we got hit by the speedy changes as well.
Okay, you got hit too.
Because it's on the client side. We just had some
Yeah.
common streaming code that Lantal was talking about that we brought in, and Dim's just confirmed in the Slack message that he thinks.
Okay, it is everybody. Okay,
I'm pretty sure from the code it's everybody.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah.
Anything else on that one, Josh?
No, that's it. That's what we needed to know.
Okay, cool. Then should I go?
Yes.
Okay. I just put this on the agenda again. So this is sort of a follow-up from last week, the discussion with Clayton about the pod lifecycle rework. So I just linked the PR there. It's quite a large PR. So I mostly just wanted to put this on the agenda to make sure that this has visibility because he's been working on basically like refactoring the whole pod lifecycle to try to fix some of these race conditions. So it's pretty invasive. So I wanted to make sure there were lots of eyes on this. And as well, there has been some confusion about the Google Doc with the discussion. So I have the Google Doc there. Clayton accidentally linked an internal doc. So I can't make that one shareable. But the public doc is the one in the minutes. And I also put it in a comment, but the comment is now being hidden because there are so many comments on the PR. So yeah, if anybody has any questions about this, I don't think we have Clayton, but I'd be happy to try to help out with answers. But there have just been, like the kubelet by design is kind of a giant race condition, and it's particularly bad if you create a pod and then rapidly try to delete it. We see lots and lots of pods get stuck in pending, sort of no matter what fixes we do. So I'm hopeful that this will fix a lot of that by unifying this pod lifecycle, but it's also a very large change. So, and I'm not deeply familiar with enough of this code to feel like I personally could approve it or something like that. So.
Yeah, Lantau, if Lantau can take a look, like a bunch of us are testing it internally and reviewing, but like we'll definitely need more eyes.
Yeah, I will take a look this week. Sorry, sorry for the delay.
Yeah.
Great, Lantau, I'll make sure that you're assigned on the PR just so you'll be able to find it.
Yeah, I think I'm assigned there already. Yeah, so I will take a look this week.
Cool. Okay. You're on there now. Thank you. And yeah, if anybody else has any questions or whatever, feel free to reach out to me or Clayton. I might be more responsive than Clayton.
Thanks for raise this one again and keep us on the top. Any other topic?
Oh, I guess I should mention while I type about backports and patch releases. The cherry pick deadline is this Friday. So I think that we have like a few very small fixes out. If you want to backport something for the June patch release, make sure that you have your backports up by this Friday. Make sure that it fixes something that is critical, is a relatively low risk change, and has been landed for at least a week already. So if you're merging something this week, it will not be eligible for the June cherry pick deadline. And I will try to get a thread up in SIG Node for that.
Thanks. Any other announcement or want to share with the community or get people's attention? Okay. If not, and I think that's for today. And everyone, you got your 15 minutes back. Have a good day.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye, folks.
Thank you.